Summit 2026.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So thank you so much for joining. You are the first speaker for this day 4 event. So, yeah, before you start your presentation, I would like to introduce you to the audience. So, welcome on stage Dr. Amanda Fernandez. She is here and she is our first speaker for our day 4. So, we are ending with the day 4 today. So, and she is the first speaker, and it will be a really a good start with Dr. Amanda Fernandez. So, Dr. Amanda Fernandez is a board certified coach, ICF professional certified coach, and founder of Waypoint Now. She transforms vision driven leaders from directive managers into coaching based strategists with a rare dual background in C suite, financial stewardship, and special education pedagogy. She bridges systems thinking with human centered coaching. Dr. Amanda was recently recognized as one of Brit Daily's One to Watch Women Who Elevated Leadership in 2025, featured in Apple News. Her work equips leaders to drive performance by cultivating trust, clarity, and sustainable impact within their organizations. So, yeah, it was a very good introduction of Dr. Amanda Fernandez. The stage is all yours. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
So
And I'm
now you,
going,
yeah, if you want to share your presentation, yeah, you can do it. I will let you know when it is ready. Okay.
perfect. Thank you so much. I'm going to just set up really quick and get my slides on.
Okay.
All right, are you able to
Yes.
see those?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, I want to say thank you all for having me. I am super excited to be here. Again, my name is Dr. Amanda Fernandez. So, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And what I want to share with you is really just this idea of how do we move ourselves from being overwhelmed to being aligned? And how do we do that while increasing our power of self belief? Because I think that's extremely important in everything that we do. And so before I walk onto any stage, I do something that probably looks a little odd to people that are, watching on the sidelines. I actually just stand still. And it's not to collect myself, it's not really to calm my nerves. I stand still because I need to know exactly where I am before I can figure out where I'm going. I want to start by asking you something today. And it's something that I ask leaders that I work with in my company, Waypoint North. And my question to you is, when is the last time you felt aligned? Not just busy, not just competent, but truly aligned, where your instincts, your authority, and your actions were all pointing in the same direction. Think about that for a second. Now, if you really had to think hard about when you truly felt aligned, if you had to scan back through months of your calendar, maybe deliverables that has come through, and you still came up empty, just know you're not broken, you're not behind, and you're not suffering from one that something that people like to call imposter syndrome. You're actually standing at a leadership threshold. And today, I'm going to give you some tools for crossing that threshold. So, something that's really important to me to say, and it may sound a little different, I'd like to just share this idea that imposter syndrome is actually mislabeled because the feeling is real. I felt it, and I'm sure you felt it, and it's viscerally, exhaustingly real, that feeling. But here's what I've come to understand after years of being at a C-level executive um, space and coaching leaders and really living this myself. That feeling of not quite belonging, of waiting to be found out, the feeling of performing confidence, but you actually quietly doubt whether or not you have the right to be in the room. That's not a psychological defect. It's actually a structural signal. And the work that I do at Waypoint North, I like to call this a liminal space. It's really a threshold between who you were and who you're becoming. And the old version of you, it no longer works. The new version of you hasn't fully formed yet. So you're really at this liminal space. And the problem is that no one in organizational culture tells you that you're crossing this leadership threshold and that the skills that aided in your leadership promotion are not the skills that you need to succeed as you move forward. But what they do is they hand you more deliverables. And here's what happens to our talented women that are facing that liminal space. We overcompensate, we overprepare, we overexplain, and we overdeliver. And we become what I like to call an overwhelmed tactician. So this is going to be somebody that's technically brilliant, but strategically buried. And she measures her worth in output, not her outcomes. She mistakes movement for direction, and she's waiting for someone to grant her authority. But here's the thing: leadership is not authority that's granted from above. It's actually influence that's generated from within us. And the overwhelmed tactician is waiting for someone to hand her that influence. But the aligned architect already claimed it. So here's the question: what does it take to make that shift from overwhelmed to aligned? Well, I want to share basically the origin short story for how I came to this. And my methodology, it wasn't born in a boardroom or from a coaching certification program. It was really born out of crisis. So I was 29 years old and I was completing a master's degree program in criminology. And I was absolutely convinced I knew exactly where my life was going. I had two young daughters at the time, and my youngest daughter, who was about 18 months, was diagnosed with profound autism. And the future that I had mapped out, it disappeared overnight. I found myself in the most disorienting kind of liminal space, one where my existing expertise didn't apply. I couldn't intellectualize my way through it. I couldn't analyze my way out of it. I had to navigate. I had no map, no precedent, and no guarantee of my outcome. But I had to because I needed to make high stakes decisions with incomplete information. I needed to advocate fiercely for her without burning out. And I needed to trust my instincts in the absence of any external validation. And what I didn't know at the time was that I was moving through a process that I would later name and teach to hundreds of leaders. And I call it the pivot process. So here's what I did: I paused. I stopped trying to force my old plans onto a completely new reality, and I created space to reflect. I identified my North Star. I separated the temporary noise of my fear and my grief from the one thing that I knew was non negotiable at the time. And that was my daughter's ability to learn, grow, and thrive. I visualized my path forward. I saw exactly where I needed to go, and I knew the why behind that move. But I didn't have a full map, but I did have a direction. So I owned it. I stepped into a completely new identity without waiting for permission to do so. I released the version of myself that really needed criminology and that degree to feel credible. And I let that go. And I took full responsibility for becoming who my daughter needed me to be. So I set my trajectory. I dropped my thesis and I pivoted. I switched into education and I took that next manageable step. That experience for me, I actually echoed later throughout my career. And so I mirrored that exactly when I faced um, being a chief business officer. I navigated resource constraints, decision fatigue, and the pressure to appear certain in the face of uncertainty. And what I discovered in that crucible is that most powerful leadership tools, it's not a framework that someone hands you. It's an internal navigation system that you build one confirmed position at a time. And when I eventually moved into my C suite position, I looked around and I noticed the same pattern everywhere. Leaders who were brilliant tacticians, skilled, accomplished, continued to promote, and yet they were drowning in this same quiet self doubt that I had once felt. And because we rarely focus on the human side behind that title, I felt like this is extremely important because they were handed authority, but they weren't given the flashlight to guide their way. And that's when I seen it clearly. This wasn't just my story. This was a massive gap in our industry. And I knew that I wanted to be that flashlight. So this was really my origin story of how I created the Waypoint system. And this is the reason why I founded Waypoint North. So before I walk you through the system, I really just want to be explicit because the heart of everything that I embody at Waypoint North is this. It's this idea that you can't lead others further than you've led yourself. Because real leadership, real leadership transformation, it's not a strategy problem. It's a personal one. And before any framework, any shift, any tool, the work really has to begin inside. You need to use self reflection, curiosity about your patterns, and you need to have the courage to be honest about where you are before you can move forward to where you want to be. And leadership is deeply personal and it's profoundly relational. And when you do inner work, you're building awareness, you're trusting your instincts, and you're leading from a place of clarity. It doesn't just change your results, it actually changes your relationships with people. It changes your team's belief in themselves, and it changes the culture that you're building around you. And this is where the transformation really begins. It's not in a strategy deck, it's not in the org chart, it's in you. It's innately, internally in you. And each shift that I'm about to share with you is going to ask something of you internally before it asks anything of you externally. So here's my shift one. This shift one is moving from directive to developmental. So the overwhelmed tactician, they manage through answers, directive, right? So someone brings a problem, she solves it. Someone hesitates, she'll decide for them. This works for a while, but what it's quietly creating is a team that stops thinking and the leader who can't stop doing. Now, the uncomfortable truth that I share with leaders at Waypoint North is that directive leadership is often a symptom of a leader's own self doubt and the fear that you have if you let it go. You fear that letting go, even slightly, even just a little bit, that everything's going to fall apart. So you're going to hold on, you're going to stay in the details, and you become so indispensable in those daily operations. But what you're doing is you're becoming invisible to the strategic vision. So to shift from developmental, it's going to ask you to replace your reflex to immediately give answers to a discipline of being willing to ask. And so the waypoint check that I give here is ask yourself this: am I solving or am I growing? And it's super simple. Am I solving this for somebody or am I growing somebody? And it's a very easy check to accomplish. So I like to use a framework called the guide framework that I created at Waypoint North. And really, the reason for this is it helps leaders make that specific shift in practice. And you can use it with your teams, in one on one meetings, and also in high stakes conversations. And the way that this looks is we start over at the G. So, ground, you're going to establish current reality. So, what are we actually starting? You're not going to spin it. There's not going to be a story. You're just going to look at facts. So, this is going to be truth based. So, once you get grounded, then you're going to move to U, which is uncover. So, you're going to surface the hidden obstructions that are in your path that are really slowing down progress. But a lot of times these haven't been named yet. So, uncovering these is super important. And then I, you're identifying the destination. You're going to illustrate the outcome with clarity. Clarity is super important, right? So we want to show what success looks like in detail. You want to take the guesswork out of it. Then we're moving into D. We're going to draw on strengths. You want to catalog talents, resources, and capabilities of the leader if you're doing it one-on-one, or team if you're in a team meeting, that those people or that leader already possesses. So draw those strengths in. And honestly, the answer to a lot of things that are coming up, it's already in the room. So by pulling on these strengths, you're going to use that as that leverage point. Then you're going to move into E, ex- execute that waypoint choice. You're going to move from trying into a definitive commitment. It's not a to do, it's not something that you put on a list, it's a decision that's made. So when you guide rather than direct, you stop being the ceiling for your team's potential and you actually become the floor from which they build upon. And you are helping to support them as they rise. Now you finally have the cognitive space to lead at the level that you were hired for. So I want to talk a little bit about a phrase that I've banned, really tried hard to ban from my clients' vocabulary. Things like, I might be wrong, but, or this is just my opinion. Or how about this one? I don't know if this makes sense, but. So these phrases, they're not humility, they're actually preemptive apologies and small acts of self erasure that are designed to protect us from the discomfort of taking up space. So, in my work, I see this pattern most acutely in women who have been promoted precisely because of their judgment, and yet they're still hedging before they speak. So, this shift is moving from apologetic to data driven. And it's really about recognizing that your intuition and your experience, it's data. Your pattern recognition that you've built over years, it's data. Your discomfort with a strategy that may look good on paper, but feels wrong, that's data. And operationalizing your intuition means that you stop treating your instincts as a liability and you start presenting them as evidence. So the aligned architect says something like, well, based on what I'm seeing, here's where I stand and here's why. There's no qualifiers, there's no pre-apologies. It's a grounded position that's presented with authority. And this shift rarely requires new skills. It actually requires permission. permission to trust what you already know, and permission that only comes from you. So this waypoint check is asking yourself, am I asking permission to have an opinion, or am I presenting a position? So before you walk into that meeting, make sure that you're grounded and you know your direction. Make sure you know your worth, and make sure that when you are getting ready to give your input, you ask yourself this waypoint check. Am I asking permission to have an opinion? And if so, switch your language and give yourself permission to present your position. So this last shift, shift 3, moving from reactive to aligned, this specific shift happens to be the heart of everything, but it also happens to be the one that leaders resist for the longest time. Your overwhelmed tactician is shaped by urgency. Her day is defined by what arrives in her inbox, not by what she's building and moving forward, but really by what's coming up on that day to day. She's exceptional at managing what's in front of her, but she's completely disconnected from what she's actually wanting to create. So in my coaching practice, I call this a fulfillment wall. It's the moment that a leader realizes that success on paper, it isn't enough. She wants to optimize for achievement. And somewhere along the way, that alignment was lost. So it takes a profound amount of self-belief to be able to name that. So the tool that I use with clients at Waypoint North to break through what I call a liberating question. And this liberating question sounds something like, does this need to be done? Does this need to be done by me? Does this need to be done at all? And so when we apply the honesty of those questions, and I use something that's called an alignment audit, most leaders discover that they're spending an enormous amount of energy on work that anyone on the team can do, but they're not nearly spending enough energy on the work that only they can do. So deleting, delegating, or even releasing no longer what serves your North Star is typically uncomfortable, but it's one of the cleanest acts and clearest ways of self-belief. It's tangible evidence that you believe your contribution is valuable enough to protect it. And the reactive leader is shaped by the moment, but the aligned architect, they're shaped by their mission. So the waypoint check here is asking yourself, am I responsible and responding to the moment, or am I navigating toward my vision? So that's a quick check-in that you can do with yourself. If you don't have a full amount of time to do the alignment audit, ask yourself, am I responding in the moment, or am I navigating toward my vision? And it'll give you a clear indication of what you should be doing with that particular activity. So let's get into the alignment framework that I've built. Everything that I've described today, the pivot process, the guide framework, the 3 shifts, all of them live inside a personal navigation guide. And I give every leader that I work with at Waypoint North this alignment audit. And what it is it's really going to anchor you and allow you to determine what should stay and what should be deleted, delegated, or given to somebody else. So let's start at the A. Anchor your North Star. So you're going to start with your why. You're going to ask yourself, how would the version of me who's already successful in this role handle this challenge today? So look at your future self and then determine how you should handle the situation today. Sorry. You want to step into that identity before you have the title. Then you're going to move to L, locate your waypoint. What's one specific action within your circle of control that you can take right now? It's not going to be a 5-year plan. It's the next true step. Then you're going to do the I, inventory the alignment, run your energy audit, get brutally honest where your time and attention is actually going, and then apply your liberation question to everything that doesn't belong. Does it need to be done? Do I need to do it? And then gauge the environment. Ambiguity is the enemy of belief. Define the roles, name decision rights, remove any fog that's quietly eroding your team's confidence and ability to move forward. And when people know where their responsibility lives, they stop hiding and they start owning it. Then the last one, navigate. You're going to navigate the decision. Transformation, it's not crossed by accident, it's crossed by decision. What choice are you making today to move from reactive and fearful to aligned and intentional? We want to do this one waypoint at a time. So I started by telling you that I stand still before I walk on stage. And I do it because a navigator who doesn't know where she is cannot plot a meaningful course. And every leader that I work with at Waypoint North begins exactly here. Not with a new strategy, not with a 5-year plan, but with one confirmed position at a time. And one true thing that they know about who they are and where they are building towards. And that's the one position at a time. Before you leave the session, I would love to invite you to do the same. Identify what is your first waypoint. It's not going to be a goal or a to do, it's just one confirmed position. Maybe it's I'm a leader who develops people, not just results. Maybe it's I'm done shrinking my perspective to fit into somebody else's comfort zone. Maybe it's something like I know where I'm going. I'm going to stop letting urgency masquerade as direction. That's your waypoint. Everything else navigates from there. So the overwhelmed tactician reacts to terrain. The aligned architect reads it. She plots her course and she moves with clarity, with conviction, and with a compass that's entirely her own. Self belief is not a feeling that you wait for, it's a decision that you make in the dark. And you already have the compass. I invite you to find your waypoint and then move. Thank you. If anything you guys heard today resonates, and if you recognize yourself in the overwhelmed tactician and you're ready to make a shift, I'd love to continue the conversation. You can find me more and learn more about what I do at waypointnorth.org or via LinkedIn. The QR codes are on here. And I also invite you to download the Align Guide, which I have linked in as well. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. And it was really a good start. And you're the first speaker. You drew the audience with your great presentation with the PowerPoint. And the slides really gave the very good information. And finally, you have given the scanner. So if you want to meet personally or if you want to connect with Dr. Amanda, you can just scan the code and you can reach out to our email address as well. And we have a question from the audience. I will pick one question for you. So, what if the real reason you feel overwhelmed is not lack of effort, but lack of alignment?
Yeah, so alignment is extremely important. So knowing what your purpose and your why is allows you to make decisions and put your energy towards those decisions. A lot of times we're feeling overwhelmed because we're in a reactionary status. So waiting, we are reacting to our full inbox, to tasks that are placed on our desk. And what is happening is we're not in alignment with what is our trajectory. Where do we want to go on our career path? What was the purpose behind being promoted into this leadership position? And we take on a lot of roles and responsibilities that don't necessarily live within the space of our leadership role and could actually be delegated or deleted or reassigned. And it could look differently in different spaces. And so, really, what this is talking about is becoming honest about where you are, the work that you're doing, and aligning towards your goals, making sure that your purpose is always there. And I see another question. Am I building a strategy or just reacting to the next task in front of you? So, really, this is a framework for lessening that feeling of overwhelm. A lot of times, when we give ourselves a 3 year plan or a 5 year plan, everything that goes into achieving that creates overwhelm as well. It's a massive amount of to dos. And sometimes we get bogged down by that. We may get into analysis paralysis. We may become procrastinators because we're just extremely overwhelmed by everything that's in front of us. This framework that I've created is really identifying what is my North Star, where would I like to be, what is the future version of me, and then I start to build out next steps. My focus is on my next waypoint. And when I achieve that next waypoint, I set the next one. And it's all in alignment to get to that end result. And that could be either a 3 or 5 year goal. For me, I started this whole journey because my daughter was diagnosed with autism and I needed to be the mother that she needed. And I needed to learn what that looked like. So I knew what I wanted, but I had to build small actionable steps to get me there and pull me out of that fog of overwhelm. It was extremely overwhelming and mentally and physically exhausting to go through all the doctor's appointments, all of the therapy, to learn everything that I needed to learn. But I knew that if I plotted it one step at a time, that that was doable and it was manageable. And what I finally discovered was I quickly picked up steam and I was able to move forward rather quickly when I focused on one actionable step at a time. And so, really, this is a strategy to get you to your long term goals.
Thank you. Thank you so much for answering the questions asked by college and one more audience. So yes, thank you so much for sharing the presentation with Virtual Summit 2026. And other speaker is waiting already in the lobby. And please do join our the sessions and encourage them as well. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.